Alright, what is up, people? How's it going, everyone? My name is Jim. Welcome to stream. We've got a very exciting episode for you guys today. We're going to have Sean Nayden on in about 15 minutes. He's just running a little bit late, so if you guys have any questions for him, make sure to leave them in chat. We're going to be covering a lot of different subjects, and then we'll probably jump into a little bit of painting. I'll show you guys. So what I've been working on recently is basically, I think on the last painting stream I had finished up the waterside transfers on my Eldar, and then since then I've done a test model. See here, I think that is going. I've done a test model for my Dire Avengers, which I'm going to show you guys now because I am a merciful guy. Let's see here. So this is my Dire Avenger test model. Give it a bit. Yeah. Bye. That look. Oh shit, sorry, you guys can't see that. Alright. Alright, there we go. So here is the Dire Avenger test model. So I did post them on Instagram originally, but I made a few tweaks. I made a few tweaks to him since I posted him on Instagram, and I'll just kind of take you through those. One thing that like I think it's always important to do as a painter, especially when you're doing like new projects, is like be open to feedback. And I posted this in BC Wargamers community, which is like our local painting community, and one of the local painters, for those of you that may know his name's Kelly Kim. He's like old school GW guy, like from way back when. Like he was a manager at GW when I was a kid. But he's been a kind of top level painter, competition winning painter, one of the better painters in the Lower Mainland. As far as like, I don't know how much he paints these days. I don't know how much like hobby he does these days, but I posted it in our group, and I just kind of showed. I was like, hey, this is kind of like a test model. He gave me some feedback, and specifically what I've done since then. Let's see if I can get this into a little bit more. I did a few things. I kicked up the edge highlighting on some of the hard surfaces. So I went a little bit brighter on like the yellow here. You can see that. Obviously, I added the waterside transfer, the rune, and I also changed the gem colors of the gun from purple to red just to help do two things: A, give it a little bit of warmth because it's quite cool, and B, to help it tie in with the rest of the army, because the rest of the army does have that little orange color on it in like the swords and stuff, right? So I wanted a little bit of color just to tie it in with the rest of the army. So I made those changes. Pretty happy with how it turned out. These are older sculpts, but they still do hold out. There's a few spots where I found that the detail was quite soft, so it wasn't amazing. I honestly don't know, Gangrel. I don't know anything about Eldar at all. Like, I know the main craft worlds. I don't know any of the sub craft worlds. I've never bought an Eldar codex in my life. I've never even looked at craft world colors. So I just painted this the colors that I thought I liked. So if it is close to a existing craft world, then great. But yeah, I'm not playing it as any specific craft world. I'm just playing it as Jim's janky ass craft world. So that's kind of the direction I'm going. Let's see here. I'm just waiting for Sean to he's got a new kid, for those of you that don't know. So he's gonna be a little bit late. Yeah, Jim's janky ass craft world. So I have 4 more of these guys I'm working on right now. These are kind of in very early stages right now, so you can see kind of I have a long way to go on these. It's kind of crazy holding them side by side because like it feels like they're so different, the models, and it's like, wow, like they're just it just feels like there's so much work to be done when I kind of hold them side by side. So it's a little bit depressing. In other news, I bought some I've been kind of been going over the Eldar leaks in the Eldar Discord. I'm gonna be talking Eldar with Sean a little bit, so we're not gonna spend the whole time talking Eldar, but I definitely have some Eldar, like, I guess I want to pick his brain a little bit on the new stuff. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're gonna do today. Also, for those of you that are new to the channel, I stream about 3 to 4 times a week on YouTube and Twitch. Mostly hobby content, some conversations and discussion content when I feel like I have a great guest. So please make sure to leave a follow or a subscription on YouTube. It really helps with the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can throw me your Bezos bucks. Always appreciate those on Twitch, or send in a super chat on YouTube as well. Help support the channel, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of been I've been in a weird mood lately, to be honest. I haven't I just finished an orc commission, which I've been working on for quite some time. But I've been feeling quite depressed, to be honest. The last, like, well, since the start of January, basically, I've been in a weird place, like, personally, just with, like, leaving my job and kind of being in a kind of a very weird state. I've been eating really poorly, gained some weight, and just feeling really shitty about myself. So hopefully that doesn't come off too much on the stream. But one thing I've always been, I guess, one thing that I've always been, like, open about is, like, my struggles on the stream, and I've always never been scared to, like, share those things. My mental health has been a bit in the dumpster lately, but I'm trying to get back to it, and hopefully. But what I will say, and this is like, so I talked to David Koska today. For those of you that don't know, David's my ex-co-host from Best Overall Show, which will eventually return when David's more settled. He's got a lot going on with life, but he called me this morning to kind of talk to me about LBO and kind of just what's been going on with his life and stuff like that. And one of the things we talked about today was motivation, and it's something that I'm going to definitely talk to Sean about. But this Eldar project has definitely it's definitely brought a lot of motivation back into my life. The last, like, 8 months, hobby motivation specifically, the last 8 months I've been kind of struggling with a lot of, like, I was doing a lot of commissions, and then I was doing those kind of killed a lot of my, like, mojo. And now that the commissions are done and I'm able to kind of just focus on my own stuff, I feel very excited to do this Eldar stuff, the rules, and get the army on the table. So I'm really motivated to do that, which has felt really nice. Like, I want to paint. Like, I get home, well, not that I get home, I wake up, because I'm not working right now, I wake up and I want to paint, right? Or when I have options of what I'm going to do with my time, I choose painting. So it's been a really good project in that respect, to get me motivated again. I have some wave serpents on order, night spinners. I got some 3D printed parts on order. I got the new what's it called, Eldritch Omens box on order. I got some 3D printed warp spiders from ArchLW on order. So I'm definitely doing exactly what I said I wouldn't do, which is order way too much stuff and have, like, a big stockpile. But what I'm concerned about, and I know you guys know that this happens as well, is that, like, just like it happened with like Dark Angels and all that stuff, that by the time I get to buy those models, everything's gonna be out of stock for like 6 years. So that's one of the reasons that I am just kind of stockpiling a little bit. What else? I got some other news. That was that. And then, oh, I had something that I wanted to tell you guys. That was really exciting. Oh, damn it. Oh, yeah, actually really funny. So for those, this is actually really funny. It's not necessarily exciting. So I don't know if you guys remember the stream on last Thursday, but one of the things that I brought up was how, as I was painting these guys, was how the little antenna thing, it reminds me of Flight of the Navigator. And we ended up going and watching a live reacting to like the 1983 Flight of the Navigator trailer on the channel live on Twitch, and I said to everyone, I was like, I swear to God, I'm gonna get a copyright strike. Sure enough, like 30 minutes after the stream ends, I get my phone vibrates and I look at it, and I got a copyright strike from Twitch. So, from YouTube, sorry. So I posted the picture of it in the Discord. Make sure you guys join the Discord. There's links on it in both the YouTube and in the Twitch. So on the Abouts page, make sure to check those out. So let me just check on Sean here, see how he's doing. Hey, Sean. Sean, oh my God, he's in Twitch. All right, Sean, I sent you the info on. Just join the Discord. I don't know if you have Discord. I sent it to you on my Messenger. The info. So just if you don't have Discord, that's fine. I can Skype call you. If you message me back your email. Sean's already here. He's beat me. Okay, guys. Give me 1 sec. We're just gonna go to the hold really quick while I get Sean set up here. So I'm just gonna hit the spot. Gotta disable this. Hey guys, 1 second. All right, we are back with Sean Nayden, I think. Sean, how's it going, man?
Good. I'm here. Made it.
All right, can everyone give me like a sign of like a blink twice if you guys can hear Sean? Although I can't really see your guys as hopefully everything's working. I'm like still very novice when it comes to this fucking Twitch technology. So I'm excited to have it working. All right, so as they say, you're a little quiet, so I'll turn you up. Okay. All right. So first of all, Sean, thanks for coming on the show. I know we haven't chatted in a while, but I wanted to get you on specifically because you won the hobby track this year. Plus, obviously, with which is huge, congratulations. And with Eldar coming up, like I kind of wanted to talk a little Eldar with you because I know you're the Eldar overlord. and just kind of catching up with you and seeing how your season went, and just generally just chat with you. So, um, so for those of you that don't know, Sean, I don't know,
Thank you, Gangrel.
Gangrel,
Appreciate it.
yeah. If you want to introduce yourself, I don't know if there's anything like you want to say about yourself that people probably don't already know.
Right. I mean, I feel like I'm an old head at this point,
Yeah,
Tim. Like, I see all these young kids come up in the game now, and I'm like, am I the old man?
I'm
Like,
37, so I'm not much I'm not that young either. So,
I know, and
I'm definitely getting
and I've
old
been
in
playing
too.
for like 20 years,
Yeah,
which is crazy. Like, it blows my mind sometimes. And because I hang out with like Chester and
mm,
Alex Fennel, and they're older than me,
yeah,
so I always have something that like makes me feel like the young man. But then like so much of the hobby now is all these young cats, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I'm
for
old.
sure. So first of all, congratulations on winning the hobby track. I know you had a pretty busy season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you just had a new kid this year, right? Or the
Yeah,
same
so
kid?
I have a 2.5-year-old and I have a nearly month old.
Okay, so I knew there was a new kid very recently, and then you just had a kid a few years ago. So
Yeah,
congratulations on fatherhood again. That's exciting.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have
it's
you
been a
been
lot of
getting
fun.
sleep, or that must be?
No, no sleep.
Yeah,
Um, Especially heading into LVO and stuff like that. I would sleep, you know, 1 a.m. to like 7 a.m.
yeah,
or something like that. Like disjointed, but like I would stay up late trying to hold the baby, get my wife to sleep, and then because I can't, she's breastfeeding and stuff like that, so I can't do
yeah,
much during the middle of the night. But it'd be like and then the 2.5-year-old started like waking up extra early because he would
hmm
hear I think the baby feeding during the night. So then he would wake up, and it was just hot mess in my house.
yeah. Well, hopefully, hopefully you get your older one gets old enough to babysit soon. It's probably at least a half decade away,
Yeah.
but you can look forward to that. So, so Sean, I guess I wanted to first ask you, and this is something that, um, like, where does your, for me, obviously, hobby has always been like a huge part of my, like, probably the thing that I actually care about more than competing. Like, I've always like, if I could pick one or the other to only do, I would be like painting and hobby, like over playing. I love playing. Well, I haven't lately with COVID the last few years. I've been basically stuck in Canada and hasn't really been able to get around, but, um, the hobby side of the game has been a huge like uh I guess thing for me as far as like my mental health and like keeping me busy and just something that I've really enjoyed more than playing. Where do you lie on that spectrum? Because I know obviously you do a lot of work on, like, I know you have an Instagram channel and I see a lot of your work you with Team Battle Brothers and like the streaming you guys do as well. So where does the hobby from like the painting and modeling side kind of fit into your overall like hobby, like vision, I guess?
If it's, I mean, I do a lot more hobby than I ever do playing,
Hmm.
and I think that comes, and even in past years, like it's weird, right? So when I started playing, I was in high school, and it was just like a high school club,
Yeah.
and none of us painted our armies really. Like
Yeah.
we would paint like I think like sub 10% of each of our armies was painted at the time, and that's when I started playing my Eldar, and I painted like the characters and kind of painted some of the units, and we would just play after school sometimes. And then if you remember those days, and we're moving past that in model wise, but Eldar was basically just like pose
It's the
metal,
same models
and like
probably.
they still are, but
Yeah.
um, so then I bought like a Space Marine army, and I didn't play one game with it, but I liked it just for the modeling. So I
Mm,
have like I tried to I didn't quite finish it, but I tried to build the first two companies for salamanders. So I
mm.
have like
That's a lot of
hundreds of
models.
marines and drop pods and 15 I have a dreadnought obsession. I have like 15, 16 dreadnoughts that for years and years all I did was paint, and I never played with it. I would just play my Eldar and club, and I would paint marines like and how much easier marines to paint than anything else. But like um and then I stopped playing the game a little bit in college, and then towards the end of my university days, I was in my apartment. I took an extra year, so a bunch of my friends had moved on, and I brought it into my apartment. Like you said, it was something to do I was like, I had a long distance relationship with my wife at the time, or she wasn't my wife at the time, but she is now. Um, and so I wasn't going out and partying or anything like that. So I brought my models to my house, my apartment, and I started painting again. And it was like, I really enjoyed this. It's really good, like you said, for mental health, that kind of thing. And that was when I actually just I'd never played in a tournament until then. And I met Alex Fennel at like the local store, and I found out there were tournaments. So then I started doing that. Um, pretty heavily and moving on to that. And for years and years, I would paint, that a little bit more than the bare minimum, but not much more than the bare minimum because it was that constant shuffle of, playing different army, playing, different variations until I got to the point where I was that 5-1 player, which is what I tell people all the time. The best players in the world are all a one loss average player because even if you win a couple tournaments, you go undefeated, you go to a couple others, you're gonna go one loss, you're averaging out to a one loss. And what I got was a little bit of burnout because you were that one loss player, but you weren't winning anything. So you weren't getting that endorphin rush at the end of the tournament of like hearing your name for anything or
Yep.
like, you know what I mean? So then I was like, okay, if I don't want this feeling, I want to feel good at the end, whether I win or lose or whatever. So then I really devoted a huge amount more of my time into the painting side of things
Right.
because what I found is that if you are that 5-1 player and your army is gorgeous, whether you win the tournament, go undefeated, or you lose one game, you're going to win something because it's usually best overall. And I win
Mm,
best overall so much of the
yeah.
time now that um, it's almost surprising when I don't win it.
Yeah, it's actually been a really interesting shift for me. So like I've been playing for about 20 years too, and I don't know if it's a Canadian thing, but when I originally started playing Warhammer Fantasy. That was like the first game that I played, and
Mhm.
best overall when I was like first starting, that was always the award that people really strove for. Like only in the last like, and this is just my perspective, like I could have been wrong about this, but I know within my communities, within this is like pre ITC, really. This is like when I played fantasy competitively, like in the 2000s. Best overall was really like the award people wanted because it was such a, and we used to have things like comp scores. Obviously there's like the sportsmanship was a lot more judgy. Like nowadays it's like thumbs up or thumbs down. Like if you didn't kill each other, it's a thumbs up, otherwise it's thumbs down. But back then, you might score someone out of 5, right? Like there might be way more subjectiveness to it. There was obviously comp scores sometimes. So like in fantasy, like if you took a really strong army, you could get a low comp score. So actually getting best overall, you actually have to put together a lot of different things. Like you had to have a not too hard army. You had to be like pretty good, pretty nice at the tabletop. Plus, it had to be pretty well painted. Plus, like you had to do really well, and to actually do all those things for a lot of people, especially because the game wasn't super balanced at the time, was a lot harder than taking just like the most super unbalanced list, winning all your games, which was quite easy if you could take like the most broken list. And that was very common to have those lists that were just so strong back in the day because they didn't balance. I mean, we can talk about balance in 40k now, but like back then, like you get a codex every six years, you'd be lucky, right? Or like
Oh
I
yeah,
remember the Dark Eldar book was like 10 years old or something. I don't know
it was a fourth edition book in like sixth edition.
Yeah. So like
Like,
nowadays we kind of take for granted like what it was like. But anyway, so back in the day, best overall was always like the big award. And only in like the last, I'd say like since I started playing 40k again, so that would have been 8th edition, was did I notice, and again, this is just my personal perspective, this big shift towards best general being really the kind
yeah, I
of
think it
like
was
premier
before
award
that
with
too. It
with
was
and then they
fifth
kind of
edition.
renamed best overall to Renaissance Man in a lot of places because best overall sounds a lot better than best o general, so they had to kind of rename it, rebrand it, so to
Yeah.
speak, so that best general was like kind of the top award, and then Renaissance Man was kind of like the kind of second award. Is that something that you noticed as well, or has best general always been kind of like the top award as far as you're concerned?
Um, Best general, I think. So I think best overall was bigger back when GW used to run events. In the before times. Now they're back running
Yeah.
events, but best general became, I think, the big award in fifth edition. That's when we started to see things like Nova and the idea of an true undefeated at an event. Because before that, the events were running maybe 4 to 5 rounds, no matter how many people showed up. It
Right.
didn't really matter. But I think when we shifted, especially in the US, to these big super majors, that as we would call them now, where you have a true undefeated and things like that, that happened in fifth edition. That was when we shifted to the best general was the biggest thing, and like you said, best overall or Ren Man became it almost became like a throwaway prize, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. Now it is what I go to events. My goal is to win best overall, and if I finish undefeated and win the tournament, that is icing on the cake. But my goal when I go to events nowadays is to win that best overall prize.
And one of the things that I think, and I suffer from this too, and I'm kind of curious to hear your perspective. Obviously there's these like the Team Battle Brothers has done really well for itself the last few years. But you guys are, as you said, you guys are older adults. You guys have children, lives. It's really hard to compete with the kind of super young. And we were there one day. Like there was a time when I was very young and had millions of hours. Um, I can't paint as much as I used to. I can't practice as much as I used to. Um, what do you do to kind of stay competitive now? Because you've very famously, I think this is the first LVO out of like you've ever attended. I think out of the last 9 that you didn't end up in the top 8. So what do you do to kind of stay competitive, given that you have a lot more limited time now versus say like in previous years where you're able to play more events? Is that something that you've noticed that your time has gone down, or do you still try to kind of maintain that same level of like practice and like staying up with everything?
Um, no, I mean I did not. In the last 5 months, I've played one game outside of an event, maybe. So like, if- and then so I went to two events in December, one November, two in October, something like that. And so you add that up. I didn't read 40K really, or
Yeah.
like we glance at it, read like our message boards or whatever. But I didn't read any of the heading into LVO. I hadn't read the new Custodes book. I hadn't read the new GSC book. I hadn't thought about Crusher Stampede or anything like that. So those were three of the top armies at the event, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna have to figure it out, on the fly, um, as the games were going on or whatever. Um, I have way less time. There's parts of the year, times of the year, last year where I was getting maybe like a game or two a week with a buddy during the midweek because he had a Wednesdays off, and so we would play that day if my son was I could drop him off at my mother's for like a couple hours and stuff like that. But towards the end of the year, as things were getting just busy with life, I just didn't. I didn't play. I think Alex came over to my house one time, um, in mid-December, and we played a game, and other than that, it was yeah, if it wasn't at an event, I didn't play for 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, and uh, you know, obviously trying to kind of adjust to the meta quickly. Now you have a lot of Eldar, obviously. I'm sure you've collected a lot of Eldar over the years. For me,
Mhm.
I don't have like I oftentimes I'd be painting units as they got good, or as especially because I started playing again in 8th edition. And so I found a lot of the times the meta would move faster than I could paint. And I've always been a person that I won't field anything on the table that's like 3 colors minimum or tournament, whatever. Like if it's not to my standard, or like painted really well, I won't put it on the table. And so my
Right, and
ability
that's why
person
that's why I've gone the same way
right, and
in
like
the
my
last couple of
ability to
years.
adjust to the meta has always been very slow. And I know for you, like you played Eldar Craft Worlds to very good results when everyone said that they were one of the worst armies in the game. Um recently you played Harlequins like for a very long time when people were just not playing Harlequins. Recently you've been playing more Dark Eldar, which are obviously a good list, but like what was that like, that like there's always that temptation, I guess, to like as soon as that new meta army comes out, switch and start playing it. Like did you find it hard to like not just do that right away and jump into those armies right away, like, or was there a reason that you really wanted to play with like Craft World Eldar? I think at the Texas event you went to, there's a few events you went to where you played Craft Worlds and you did really well, and people were like, "Oh, you can't win a tournament with Craft Worlds," and then Sean goes and wins a tournament with Craft Worlds, and it's like, okay, like, so like, was it hard to like purposely kind of handicap yourself in those events, or did you not see it as a handicap?
Um, it's both. I mean, with some of these things, you have to accept your reality when you make those choices, and the reality when you and I are painting and expecting to paint to a certain level to build the models, then you know you're kind of locking your list in at a month or even more before an event. Maybe you could rush one unit or like one little change at the end. Like you said, I do play a lot of these armies, but I was um as a painter, as you grow as a painter, you start to look at your other old stuff and you're like trash,
Yeah.
hot trash, garbage, can't look
Yeah.
at it, don't want to put, you know what I mean?
I know that.
So like, I have a big collection, but some of it is maybe, you know 10 years old, and so it has to be repainted. I went during COVID, I was repainting Dark Eldar, which is why I was playing them towards the end of this year because I didn't know the Codex was coming and was going to be this, hot button topic. So I let it run when it first came out. I only like allied it in some a little bit, and I didn't play it full until they had at least had some nerfs, and had time to gestate because I didn't want people to just be like, but I was like, but I did put in the paint work. So I was like, these models are going to see the table for a while. And then towards the end of the year, they were my best painted stuff. So I was like, well, obviously I'm going to keep playing them because if I'm chasing this hobby track goal,
Right.
I need my best foot forward, for these events. So I always say that people should manage their expectations, and including myself. It's like, I think I'm a good enough player to win any event. I think I could have won LVO. I think I didn't make the top 8 because of my own mistakes in one game.
Right.
Like it wasn't my list. It wasn't anything like that. It was legitimately mistakes I made and I let happen to me in that game that kept me out of the top 8. But um, in order to win, I would have had to have maybe a little bit luck on matchups, even in that top 8. But I mean, it would have been possible with the list I had. Like you said, it was Jakari was still very strong. It wasn't the hot meta Jakari list, but it was still a very strong list. But anytime you go with these lesser lists, you manage your expectations. You have to focus on what is the top of the meta. So like when AdMech first came out and everybody was playing AdMech, my Harlequin Eldar list was built. I was like, if I play the meta list right now, I'm going to blow it off the table. If I run into some off meta lists, I'm going to struggle because Eldar were so far down the power line. But if
Right.
you can focus on sometimes. The internet is a wonderful thing. It brings us all this information, but it does set, if something gets too good, the 40k community does homogenize a little bit, right? So then it actually almost makes it easier to play off and weaker stuff because you understand, okay, these are the de facto 2 best lists. If I'm good enough to beat the medium to bad players, no matter what they're playing, and I can get to those top tables where everybody's playing these 2 lists, then you could build a list just for that. You just have to, you know, fake it till you make it through the early rounds.
Right. And speaking of balance, like, what is your like, given this the state of, we got this balanced data slate that's just kind of come out in the last few weeks. We had chapter approved drop. Obviously, there's custodes seem to be the kind of new kid on the block. Tau, obviously, there's lots of people freaking out over Tau. And then, coming up very quick, I've seen a lot of leaks. There's lots of rumors out there on Eldar going to be incredibly strong. So what's your kind of overall, I guess it's 2 questions. Like, what's your overall take right now on the state of the game? And how do you feel about this new approach Games Workshop is taking to balancing with the balanced data slates and the constant point updates and stuff like that? Like, do you feel like they're doing the right thing, or do you feel like here be dragons?
I mean, I think updating the balancing is super important, and it's very helpful to keeping some of these other books alive, even if they won't be. It doesn't take a book that doesn't have a new codex. It's not going to make them maybe top tier with the points adjustment, but it like brings it closer where you can player skill your way past some of the armies and stuff like that. Um, we we do have a power creep problem that is going crazy, and I think we're getting to the point where things are in too many places. I look at the Tyranids right now, and that you have an old codex, so it has some strats in it that shouldn't exist and will hopefully go away. They did rumor that they're going to be right after Eldar, so that's going to come. But
Yeah.
like they have fight twice and shoot twice, which are now in most ninth edition codex restricted to certain units and not carte blanche on
Right.
their army, and then you have a White Dwarf supplement, a supplement book, Leviathan. You have Crusher Stampede and a White Dwarf that is ridiculously strong, and again, and it's I always look at it as the law of unintended consequences. I think Crusher Stampede is great if GW was like, hey, we want to make Carnifexes better and see some of these other monsters on the table that haven't seen the table, and you'd be like, cool, that does make them better. But they didn't think through to be like, oh, these Forge World monsters that have like 17 wounds and like T8, or you know what I mean? Like they didn't think it through into what it would apply to, and when players were like, I took a Hyrule and like a whatever the flying thing is, like
Yeah, I did hear like, and I mean, from what I understand, thankfully all the Forge World rules writing is now under the main 40K Rules Studio banner, but it still feels like, and this is kind of what they did with 8th edition, where they write the index at the start of the edition, and then they don't really ever look at it again, except maybe to add a few keywords here and there. Like they never really give it another balance pass. They never really give it like a really good update to like bring it in line with the new book. So I know we just got like a quick FAQ for some of the Custodes, but again, it was just to add keywords here and there. They're not really
yeah.
looking, and sometimes, and what we saw with Custodes, and I'm glad that this happened, because one of my biggest things with Custodes was like, okay, like Forge World has been such a big part of the Custodes' strength the last, few years. Is the book going to rely on Forge World? And really what they did was put a lot of the strength back in the regular units and make it so that the Forge World stuff is really not that great, which I think is the right call. Obviously, I'd like Custodes just have more stuff in plastic, but like I think that's the right call. Do having been a long time WTC slash ETC player, what are your overall thoughts on Forge World? Like, and I know obviously you've used it in the past, but like, do you feel like it's a good? Do you think it's like a good thing that that it is kind of a separate thing? Do you think it should just be kind of all rolled into one big model range? Like what are your kind of overall thoughts on it?
I wish, to be honest with you, I wish Forge World didn't exist in competitive 40K.
Yeah.
I just think it's like too much stuff, and like some armies I get like Custodes don't have a huge range, but neither do Harlequins, and I would encourage maybe GW to make some of those things in plastic, add those units if they deem them good enough for the book to just make them in plastic. Every edition maybe roll two more of them into the plastic line or whatever to expand that. Um, Guys, I do always think that there's a disconnect between the Forge World stuff and the main book stuff, and some of it is just like, here's the same thing but better and cheaper, and does this crazy other thing, and it's like, well, then you've now invalidated the book thing. You've not added to it. It's not adding anything to it. It's usually just invalidating something in the book, like that you could have just made that book thing a little bit better to make the army better versus like look at dreadnoughts. It's like no one uses book dreadnoughts. They use
Contemptors.
relic contemptors or leviathans. Like there's never really been a good case of, hey, Forge World added this fluffy thing to make my army better. It's always been like, hey, Eldar have warp hunters that are D weapons, and a lynx that's a D weapon, and then bro Leviathan.
Yeah.
There's never been a point in 40K where Forge World has been, oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it always felt like it was like 99% trash and then 1%
Yeah,
broken stuff that slips through the cracks. There was never any like it didn't feel like there was a choice. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love the Forge World models. I like Contemptors
I
are
don't
fun to
think I
paint.
don't think they sold more of their Forge World models, Speezy, because most people don't buy the real Forge World ones. They've
Yeah,
got
that's true.
second hands, third hands, recasts. Like the
Russian
people that are buying those, the
Russian and
people that are
Chinese
going to pay
hands.
for the people that are going to pay for the real Forge World models are usually people that are like hobbyist collector type people. Like
Yeah.
I have a real Forge World Flyrant because it's cool looking. I have like I'm not buying the Chinese recast more because I'm like scared of the cheesy resin and what disease it's gonna bring.
Yeah.
But you know
So
what I mean? Like most
yeah,
people are buying them secondhand or recast. To
yeah.
be honest,
Yeah, it's we'll see what happens. I did hear some rumors of them getting like them putting it on the main store at some point, but just the fact that it's even a separate thing where like if I want Forge World, it's a whole separate shopping cart, I think. And the Horse Heresy obviously a big mess right now, so we'll see what happens with it. Um so LVO's over, and come August, you have the WTC, which is going to be the first time in two years, I think, that they've had the event, and the first time it's actually as the WTC because now no longer the ETC. You've got a pretty stacked lineup given, you got two-time LVO and ITC winner Richard. I don't know. I think Anthony's on the team. Who else is on the team? And
John Lennon, Brandon Grant, Mike Brandt, Frankie, me. I always forget whenever I try to do
yeah.
this. I always forget somebody.
So what
Eh,
for a lot of these guys that haven't gone before, because I know one of the things that you've talked about in the past is how you always like to bring in a few new people to kind of
Yeah, we got heavy new
yeah.
people this
What
year. I
kind of
think we have
preparation are you gonna, especially
one
given that
returning player.
the format's quite different, the team format's quite different. Now all those guys are great singles
Now, a lot
players,
of these
but
guys have experience with like 5-man teams because we've had a lot more of those events
yeah,
in the US. And so like a lot of them have ATC experience. The Vegas team event this year, Siegler and Lennon won that together. What's a big help is we're no longer running like Junko missions, right? Like in
right.
years past, it was the
Maelstrom,
WTC missions were
yeah,
only played there, and
yeah,
so like getting my American players to even practice them, I was like, hey guys, for like 2 months, can you kind of forget about real 40K, ITC
yeah. I do
40K,
remember that having to play
and
those
play this,
missions, and I
and
was
like
like,
sometimes like it was just a struggle to get them to even do it, and like so it's a big benefit that it's no longer that. So like anything that they do in regular 40K tournaments here can be extrapolated and count as reps towards preparing for WTC, which is a huge step. But
and
yeah,
are you excited to get
I
back
always looked
there?
at it. I am. I told my wife that this will probably be the last time I go as captain. I've been in talks with Brandon Grant to maybe be the next Team USA captain.
Crazy.
Because it's just like I got the 2 kids now. I'm like, do I really want to like go to Europe for like 10 days every year? And my wife
Yeah,
said you didn't
you
have to give it up, but I
at
was
least
just
have
like,
the
you know what?
option to
I
go
think I think
rather than
it's time to
having to
move.
go. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe go next year, but like not if you decide it's not a good year, you can bow out. The whole team doesn't collapse.
Right. Exactly. Right. But it is. I love all the people I've met through the WTC, and I think the when we go there, it's so much fun. It's such a great experience. And that's always been my goal with the team is to try and get more and more people to have that experience. So we will only have Mike Brandt. I think will be the only person this year who has gone on the team.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think?
Everybody else will be new.
Obviously, it was pretty big news at LVO that the ITC and Games Workshop is going to be partnering. And I was talking to Tom Layton last week, and I don't know, he doesn't have any information obviously, but he's English, so he's a lot closer to those guys than you are. And I kind of prodded him on it, but do you think that the WTC and Games Workshop should try to have a much stronger relationship? Because from the past, I remember them having a quite contentious relationship in the
Now the
past, just given
contentiousness was because of ninth age.
right.
Most of the problem was that you had this huge amount of Warhammer Fantasy players that didn't want to play Sigmar and wanted to keep playing ninth
They're gonna get their wish in a
edition
few years,
Fantasy.
so
Um, so they kept playing it, and so the GW would never talk to the ETC because of that. But now that 40K is on its own, I think they can have a much stronger relationship.
yeah. Do you think that's something? Do you think both, like, obviously, we'll knock on wood, what happens with the ITC Warhammer relationship? There's a lot of unknowns still, and I think a lot of people are hoping that it keeps its independence. But as with all things, there's a lot of like worry out there that all of a sudden they're gonna impose special requirements and stuff like that. So how do you feel about that partnership, and do you feel like uh pretty confident that
I mean,
like the ITC and the WTC potentially in the future will keep their independence? Is that something that you'd be worried about, or do you think these organizations are fairly kind of like strong as they are and are able to kind of like
they're strong as they are, and you got to remember they always had kind of a relationship anyway. The ITC is run by Frontline Gaming,
yeah
and they are one of the biggest sellers of GW projects. So they've always had a relationship with GW. That if that relationship had soured, their livelihood would be at stake. In
yeah
essence. So there's always been that kind of relationship anyway. In terms of tournament 40K and GW, now you have Mike Brandt working for GW, doing a great job and trying to make it more of a tournament friendly game and care about tournaments and etc. And you've got like professional people that they've hired. So if you think that they're going to lose their independence, I would say that they never really had their independence. They had some probably like backroom directives, I would guess,
yeah
like, hey, stop doing this, or you don't
right
do this, like, you know what I mean. So it's not. I don't think it'll change in any negative way. I think it'll be only positively. I mean, I won a 2,000 point army for winning the hobby
Yeah,
track, which is
exactly. Well, it's interesting because a lot of those the prizes it seems like Games Workshop's going to take care of. Like for I think maybe the ITC steps back as far as like end of year prizes and stuff. But I'm excited personally for it. I mean, I definitely have my there's definitely some things that I want to hope. I hope like the ITC does. It's a renamed international tournament circuit, so it's no longer an independent tournament circuit. But I do hope that it keeps its independence because I think and I don't know if it's like yeah,
like they don't have their own FAQ anymore. Like they got away.
yeah,
They
like,
did
and that was
away
one of
with
the
all
things
that.
that was kind of like the beginning of like the rumors where it's like, okay, they're not gonna have their FAQ, they're gonna use rulebook missions. Okay, now it's they're and I think that was like I think one of the biggest and most significant changes in 40K competitive 40K the last 2 years has that everyone is playing the same missions.
Yep.
Almost everyone. Now, obviously, Adepticon does its own weird thing that no one quite understands. And
Are they still doing their own
I
weird thing
haven't
this
read their
year?
pack, but I know as like last year's rules pack,
Because
I
I'm
did
not
read.
going, so I didn't
Um,
know.
but like again, and obviously Nova is this thing as well. But I think that's a huge thing, especially internationally. Just as you mentioned, like the fact that Manny Chima can come over here and play at really high level and win events or do really well speaks a lot to the fact that we're playing the same missions, and it's a lot easier to compare apples to apples and say, because a lot of times, and one of the criticisms I used to hear of the WTC or the ETC was like, oh, they're not even playing real 40K, they're playing their own version of a house ruled 40K. And the ITC did the same, right? So there's a lot of like, well, they're playing
Yep.
who's playing the real 40K. Well, now we're all playing the real 40K, which I think is great. But one of the things that I would obviously be concerned about, and this isn't something that I'm even worried about because I love Games Workshop the models. Almost all my stuff is Games Workshop. So I don't have like a lot of 3D printed stuff or third party stuff, but I know that like with the rise of 3D printing, there's a lot of people kind of screaming from the rafters that like they're gonna outlaw just like any 3D prints and stuff like that or alternative ranges. Not even if they're 3D printed, just like yeah, I can't use like my Kings of War models or whatever. So hopefully
Yeah,
that
and I know
doesn't happen.
there was a big worry at for example, the GW events
Yeah,
because it was in their packet that you had to be GW model. So I know some people that like didn't attend because they're like, my whole army has a third party Space Marine heads plus third party Space Marine shoulder pads and blah blah blah
yeah,
on top of the regular models. And I think I still saw some of those armies there, and they weren't being kicked out. And I don't think GBW is going to kick them out if you're not like super vocal about
yeah,
it. I think what that rule in their packet was for is because I remember years ago, a player at an event showed up with like toys, like actual toys that were then like they either like semi painted or just played with them as toys and were like this is this and this and that. And so it's like I think it's a very strongly worded section of their packet, but I think it's designed to allow them to remove a person who is clearly not playing with models.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And is playing with like toys they bought at like a dollar store or something like that. And we're like, hey, here's my Swedish fish. That is the
yeah,
I don't know, you know what I mean? But because of how it's worded, it scares some people off that because there is all this like conversion and third party and 3D print that I think that GW I feel should embrace because you're still playing their game, you're still I mean for the most part you're still buying their models and then spending more money on top of said models to make
yeah.
said models look different,
That's the thing,
like
right?
and be unique.
Um, yeah, I've always said, and I think there's a huge missed opportunity if Games Workshop could somehow get their entire back catalog of bits and like stuff that they don't make anymore out of production stuff, and essentially get it scanned and put it in a 3D, and then have like a third party company that essentially you can get 3D prints of any officially licensed 3D prints essentially. Of like old models, bits, that kind of stuff. I think that would be like unbelievable. Like it was so cool. I don't think they'd ever do it, um, but oh yeah, and you get a win. You won you won a 2,000 point army. One of the members of chat is asking, do you know what you're gonna get?
I told him I want the new Eldar models.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
I mean,
disappointed also? And speaking of new Eldar, I'm starting. I started an Eldar army. I'm very.
I've seen some
I've
of the
been. I've been
painting and
like.
stuff like
I've been
that.
having. I was mentioning earlier before we jumped on stream that like the last 8 months I've been doing a lot of commission work and like I sold my chaos off in October. All of it. So no chaos left. I just have my soul drinkers, my space marines, which I really don't want to play. I'm like you. I collected them. I painted them for throughout like the first year of COVID, and I have like probably 5,000 points. I played one game with them. Like I have no desire to play them, but it's a cool chapter that I always liked, so I just wanted to own them. But I have
Well,
no
yeah,
desire to play Space Marines.
Space Marines are so easy to paint. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
I go from like my spindly little Eldar old shit models, and then I picked up some of the new. Like, I painted like a Primaris Marine. I was like, oh my goodness! Like, there's so many
yeah.
big flat surfaces.
But I guess I was disappointed a little bit that we didn't get at least like one more Aspect Warrior kit. I was hoping maybe we'd
Yeah.
get like, obviously, and the Dark Reapers aren't.
Spiders or scorpions would have been better than Dark Reapers, I think.
Yeah, one of the things
Dark Reapers
I
are a
think
very
I'm.
static posed model anyway, so I don't think they suffer with their older models.
Yeah,
Like
the new stuff is
spiders
great.
are
Like the
bad.
avatar looks amazing. I got the new set on pre-order, so I'll be hopefully getting into those. And I'm painting some Dire Avengers right now, and even though they're an older kit, they still hold up pretty well.
Yeah, they hold up.
But like
And
there's
they're not
definitely
that old.
parts you can like there's definitely parts of the models where like the detail's a little soft. You can tell like
Yeah.
it's a kind of that older sculpt. And it's so funny looking at the older sprues where they're so empty, right? Like nowadays you get a sprue this big and it's packed, like every inch of it is packed with miniatures. Nowadays, like those old ones, there was like it was like they hand placed the pieces, right? So there's literally like 2 inches between each piece. It's like it's crazy how much space there is on those old sprues.
Yeah, they are, and I still dig them out. I still have. I mean, my COVID army. I bought an orc army, as a paint project, and then I painted like 3 models, and I have just like stacks of boxes of orcs in the house.
Yeah. Well, I
I'm
was
like,
saying sorry that they've been exciting to paint and it's really gotten my hobby juices flowing. Are you is there anything kind of in your like anything you're gonna be working on the next little while, like as far as like hobby projects? Like what's kind of the big hobby project coming up besides your newborn?
so like, I'm not gonna go and play in an event until at least May or June. I told my wife that we'd let the baby percolate, get kind of older, so that old enough that we'd feel comfortable with like a grandparent watching her, type thing before I stepped back out, to be like a gone for the weekend. So I may do some orc projecting. I'll paint new Eldar when they come out. Of course, can't not. And some of those like those new Shining Spears models are
Yeah,
they're
they look
gorgeous.
really good.
Like,
I heard that like yeah, hopefully they're I mean, they have such a
I heard they're bad,
reputation.
but
They just terrorized everyone from 8th edition. So like I kind of feel like everyone's excited for them, but like Games Workshop, right? They never swing the hammer very subtly. So I imagine they're not going to be very good at all. Same with Dark Reapers, like the two kind of like meta units from like 8th edition that everyone hated. I feel like they're going to be like bad, and then everything
which is
else is going
again
to be really good.
it's like bad Games Workshop. Spraying with a water bottle. It's like cool. Then the models you should have made in plastic should have been like 2 models that you were gonna make great in this codex, not 2 models that you're gonna make bad. Like
Yeah.
that's just that. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like when they made the new plastic banshees, which look good. Um, they made them last edition, I believe. They came out in that starter box with Jane Zar and
Yeah, was it?
Drazar and the Incubi, Phoenix Rising maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But they made these new models, but since banshees were so bad, they like didn't sell. Like when they went to their own box set, and like people were like, well, obviously no one, y'all cried for plastic aspect warriors, but it's like cool. But if you make bad aspect warriors, guess what? The models won't sell.
Yeah, like I know there's always that conspiracy theory that Games Workshop purposely overpowers new models to make them sell. But then I look at things like the storm I don't know if they're called the storm
Look at like
speeders
orc buggies.
or the
When
orc
orc buggies
buggies or
first
like
came out, they were bad.
the tanks, the new Space Marine tanks that like I've never seen ever. Or a
Oh yeah,
lot
yeah, yeah.
there's just a lot like there's a lot of models that like come out and you're like, oh, these just never have seen the table ever. Like obliterators, like they came out in that like the new plastic obliterators, like I mean that's a chaos thing where everything is just generally bad, but yeah, it's always it quickly dispels the notion that like they make new stuff intentionally good. And then you end up with things like veterans, like Vanguard veterans, things that are like people have had in their collections for 50 years being like the best thing, right? So
Yeah.
all right,
I mean,
Sean.
Drazar and the Incubi were good. You are
Sorry.
right, Gangrel. Drazar and the Incubi are good.
Yeah,
Like
like
out of that box set.
he's so good. Um, last, I guess, as a aspiring elder, as general, any like last advice for me as far as like um getting a handle on the faction, as far as like play style, because it's very different than the play style that I'm used to. So do you got any like tips for me as far as like what I should be doing here playing
Um,
Eldar versus like just a play style in general versus like other armies, given how fragile they are?
they are fragile, so it's about like using that speed to pick, and it's like weird. Eldar are weird because they have this weird duality in their book where there are some units that are insanely tough, like the Wraith units and stuff like that, but they still can't like stand up to like protracted fights. So it's about like picking the fights and using the range of like things like Dark Reapers or some of the tanks and the indirect fire to like weaken stuff and pound stuff, and then using your speed to pounce in the right spots and push people off objectives and stuff, with things like spears or banshees or whatnot that come available. I mean, we'll
Hopefully
see.
not double moving Shining Spears. Hopefully
I know, right?
hopefully we've seen the last of those for
I
many
mean, I think
editions.
they've gotten rid of most of the double move for most people. That's a
Yeah.
again something that's lingering on with Tyranids right now is they still have free double move off Stormlord, but if that goes away, if some of the double shooting goes away, you'll get some of these books to come
I
back in
feel
line.
like it's almost like every, I don't want to say every edition, but every like quarter of an edition they discover a new mechanic and they like overuse it. So now it seems like this ignore invulnerable is like the new hotness, right? It seems
Hmm.
like Eldar is gonna have it, Chaos is gonna have it,
Al
like
has
Tau
it.
have it. Everyone's got to ignore invulnerable. A little while ago it was double like in eighth edition it was like double moves, double shoots, like these kinds of mechanics. Then we had like -1
And this edition
damage.
too is the -1 damage has
Everything
been
seems to have
heavy
-1
this
damage.
year.
Like it like I don't know if they're just very like unoriginal, but they kind of overdo it for a little while, and then they find a new cool thing, and then they overdo that, and it just kind of it's almost cyclical in that sense. So I don't know. I mean, I imagine it's incredibly hard to balance a game this complex, but um, it does feel sometimes like they resort to a lot of the same stuff, which isn't the worst thing because 40K is like when I started 40K, I thought it was hard to get into. It's like so hard to get into right now. Like the amount of rules bloat and like the complexity of it. Just even like building an army, like how to actually build an army. You've been the victim of it. Like the keywords and the detachments and the this and the that. It's like it's so complex. There's so many like weight places to trip. Do you think that's something that they really need to adjust, or do you feel like um,
I think they tried to address it with their app. Their app is just not doing that, so people aren't using it. So Battlescribe is where we go because it's crowdsourced, crowdfunded, but sometimes even that, lets you down.
yeah,
um, so you do get, caught and stuck. It is what it is. I think. Um, I like events because again, it goes with the painting thing. If we submit lists early and then people are like, "Hey, this list is wrong," and then you just fix it before the event with no, problem. If you're like, "Oh, missed that, no problem." Like I like that more than you know hiding the list, not releasing them early, and then people get stuck at the event with like one thing wrong, and then it's like, "Oh, witch hunt." It's like that doesn't help anybody. Like,
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it, and like I think the game is so complex that like it's hard not to make mistakes, to be honest. Like you really have to be careful. And second, the I think there's a cultural problem with how we treat like there's a very like I don't know if it calls suspicious, but like everyone thinks that everything is like cheating, and you're basically trying to rig the whole tournament versus like honest mistakes versus like carelessness or like you just hey your math was bad, like there's a lot of like degrees, but people treat
mhm.
everything like the same, like you're basically using loaded dice, like that's like you know what I'm saying. So I think that's a
Yeah.
cultural thing in the hobby, especially in the competitive scene, where it's problematic, and also, and I just saw today earlier that Steve Joel of Game Changers, he's gonna have TJ Lanigan on his show, and I know I've known TJ forever, and I know you know him as well, and he said it's like a really tough episode, and I know TJ went through like has gone through like a really tough time, and I've always been an advocate of like this idea of like we have to be able to people have to be able to rehabilitate themselves, and there has to be a pathway to like forgiveness and like getting back to like a place. Like we can't treat people where we like cancel them forever, and it's like that's it. Like I still hear stories about Alex Harrison. he's never going to lose that reputation. And I don't know how he plays these days, but I just think it's really problematic in our community that we're so like unforgiving when it comes to, you know, whether it's intentional or not. Like people do stupid shit. They make purpose, like they make mistakes that they thought they could get away with, and they learn, hopefully they learn from them. And I'm fairly progressive, so I believe in that, like the idea that like there has to be a path to forgiveness, right? We can't just like crucify people forever and have them like now completely like, you know, removed from the hobby forever. It doesn't sit right with me. But I don't know your thoughts around stuff like that. But
No, yeah, I think like you said, there's tons of different mistakes that you can make or different choices you can make that then if it becomes a pattern of choice, then you have to be watched more. But I don't think um you should be chased out until you prove that you should be chased out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like if you're given avenues and upon avenues and then you continue to shit on people, then maybe yeah, you gotta go. But um like I had a thing earlier this year where I played a secondary wrong in 3 out of 9 games because I had mistaken. I thought all my units were 145, but one was 147. I didn't do it. So then I
yeah,
noticed it when I was building my next list for the next event. Like when I'm in the car in the airport, headed to the airport from the event, noticed that when I copy pasted the new list, I was like, oh, I fucked up. I don't think anybody at the event noticed. I don't think anyone post event noticed, but I immediately contacted the event. I was like, hey, can you scrub me? I finished second. It would have actually put me really close to maybe winning the ITC battle this year, but
yeah,
I was like, can you just scrub me from this event? Blah, blah, blah. Messaged all my opponents, apologized to them. I was like, just take me right out. Because I was just like, this was a mistake. It didn't influence a lot of my games. 2 of the 3 games that I used it in, I won 95 to like 12. Like it was not
right,
influential and it wasn't a legal list. I just couldn't do what I did in those games. So I was just like, can you just scrub me? Um, is what it is. Like in the same event, you know how the X-Arc is in Battlescribe, you have to click the X-Arc even though it's a free upgrade.
oh
Did you
really?
notice that for your Eldar?
I haven't even used Battlescribe for Eldar yet. I've literally just been painting. I'm like, I'll wait till the new
Yeah.
book comes out before I even like take a look at it.
So like on my swooping hawk unit in the same event, I didn't click X-Arc and I noticed it before the event because people were making fun of me. They're like, why didn't you pick an X-Arc? And I was like, so I didn't. So you lose a leadership, a wound, and a special power just by not clicking the
Yeah,
free upgrade. So I was like, ugh. So like it went both ways where I made a mistake in the event to my detriment and to my benefit. And it's
yeah,
like you said, it is what it is. But I was just like, but I think that's how you have to treat it. I think if people police themselves more, you'll have less problems. And I think that if you police yourself hard, then I don't think that there should be any, real brushback from some things. Like it's just what you have to do. And because we don't have a governing body that will give us like real kind of results. I mean, ITC kind of, and maybe they will do more now with GW and GW, giving out these prizes. Maybe that means you have to be more strict on people, but at the moment, it's really only self policing. So,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I
So
mean, 'cause I'm sure at every event, people are making mistakes at the tables too, either playing a strat wrong or playing the wrong. Now that they have all those different costs for some strats, I'm sure people are playing. Oh, I thought this was only 1 CP, but really, because my unit had this many guys, it's 2 CP, or this thing. And in this situation, it's 2 because my power level, which I've never read before, is this. Like like you said, our game only gets more and more complex, so there's more mistakes. And as long as people are willing to just police themselves in some way, then I think you can be okay. Like you said, on a redemption arc.
absolutely. All right, Sean. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Where can people find you online if they want to kind of follow your adventures for the rest of the year?
Um, I haven't streamed in maybe like 6 months.
Okay.
People keep asking me to get back to that. So we'll
I
see
know you have
if I
it. I
do.
think you have it. You do
I do have
post.
an Instagram, and I try to post there pretty regularly when I'm painting stuff, and that's like most things. I'm Sean Nayden.
Okay.
I'm very,
So
I'm very
you guys are
creative.
interested in checking out what he's been working on, and yeah, I'd love to check back in with you after the WTC to see how it went, and hopefully you guys will bring home. I mean, I have no hope for the Canadians. Like I love them; they're my people, but I have no hope that they're gonna win. So for us to at least beat the Europeans, I'd be happy with that. So I'm rooting for you guys to at least
In
bring
North
home.
America.
Yeah, we'll call North American. You know, we've had an American on our team. Maybe one day we'll have a Canadian on your team. So we'll kind of just, you know, in my head it's basically the same. So I am rooting for you guys to stomp those guys over there and prove to them, because you know a lot of those Europeans have a kind of like chip on their shoulder as far as like being a lot better than anyone in North America. And so it'll be nice to see you guys kind of once and for all prove that. Not that you guys haven't. I know you guys won it a few years ago, but it'll be good to kind of two-peat that. So best of luck in the future with the WTC, and yeah, good luck with the newborn, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks for having me.